tug-of-war over their FTA and Trump's new tariff plan. Plus, 7 weeks after being forced to retire from the biggest match of his life against his boyhood hero, Korean tennis star Chung Hyeon gets another shot at world number one, Roger Federer. Our top story this morning, South Korea is busy gearing up for the historic Inter-Korean summit that's slated for late April. Headed by President Moon Jae-in's chief of staff, the preparation committee will hold their first meeting at the nation's top office on this Friday. Our chief Cheongwade correspondent Moon Gon-young starts us off.
South and North Korea have agreed to hold the third leaders' summit at Peace House in Panmunjom in late April.
With only some 6 weeks left until South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un come face-to-face for their historic summit in late April, the Moon administration has switched on their preparation mode for the first inter-Korean summit in over a decade. Seoul's presidential Blue House on Thursday announced the launch of an interagency preparation committee for the 2018 Inter-Korean Summit. The committee will be headed by President Moon's chief of staff Im Jong-seok, one of a handful of key players that the Liberal president is banking on to rebuild inter-Korean ties, who played a pivotal role in the détente with the North Korean regime fostered by the PyeongChang Winter Olympics last month. His key aide to the committee will be Minister of Unification Cho Myung-gyun, and members of the committee comprised the President's National Security Advisor, Chief Policymaker, Foreign Affairs Minister, Defense Minister, Intelligence Chief, and Minister for Government Policy Coordination. The committee is also divided up into 3 working groups, one responsible for setting the agendas to be discussed at the 2018 South-North Korea Summit, another tasked with communications and media relations, and last, in charge of situation management, planning, and support.
Compared to the preparation team created for the Inter-Korean Summit in 2007, we have created a more simple and straightforward organization so that we can respond more quickly and take swift actions.
A prep team that can make swift and efficient decisions is key at this point, as it's tasked with planning a high-stakes summit with such little time in their hands.
President Moon has set out the committee's key mission to make sure substantial agreements are made during the summit in April, ones that will drive forward inter-Korean development and ties.
The committee will convene a meeting on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to check up on the preparations, while the working groups will meet 3 to 4 times a week to discuss and negotiate the details. The first meeting of the entire committee is scheduled for Friday afternoon right here at the presidential office. Moon Gon-young, Arirang News, the Blue House.
Now, North Korea's foreign minister is in Stockholm amid speculation Pyongyang is starting to make arrangements for talks with the US. The Swedish Foreign Ministry says Ri Yong-ho will discuss Sweden's consular responsibilities in North Korea with his counterpart Margot Wallström during his 2-day stay. But the timing of the trip suggests Pyongyang may be reaching out to the US via Sweden to confirm the talks that President Trump had unexpectedly accepted. There's even speculation North Korea could propose Stockholm as a neutral venue for the meeting. Meanwhile, Washington has denied reports it will send a delegation to meet Ri, and says that so far there has been no direct contact with Pyongyang since the offer for talks was made via South Korea. And President Trump's newly tapped Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has been given the full backing of his boss to prepare for the US-North Korea summit. Watchers say the change in personnel should accelerate the pace of organizing the unprecedented meeting. Our Park Jong-hong reports.
Just 2 days after nominating him as his new Secretary of State, President Donald Trump has heaped praise on Mike Pompeo's track record. In a press release, the White House said Director Pompeo led the CIA to confront threats to national security posed by North Korea and put forth new methods that enabled the interdiction of shipments that violate sanctions on the regime. The touting of his accomplishments is seen as giving credit for his contributions to Trump's maximum pressure campaign against North Korea.
Pompeo is a great choice. That nobody's closer to President Trump than Mike Pompeo.
Pompeo's formal confirmation is pending a congressional hearing, a process that may take some time. But pundits say the pace toward the first-ever U.S.-North Korea summit will probably pick up steam. Pompeo has said he will strive not to repeat the mistakes of the previous administration with regard to North Korea, and highlighted President Trump's accomplishments.
He leaves on the table that discussion for denuclearization. These are real achievements. These are conditions that the North Korean regime has never submitted to in exchange for conversations.
Known to have more hawkish views than the outgoing Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Pompeo is seen to be capable of taking a hardline stance on North Korea in future denuclearization talks. Washington Post columnist Josh Rogan wrote on Thursday that the State Department is set to regain relevance with the new incoming chief. On the organizational side, Pompeo is leaning toward discarding much of the State Department reorganization project Tillerson had prioritized, an effort which has been hugely unpopular. Pompeo is expected to establish a new team inside the current bureaucratic structure aimed at creating less havoc while still emphasizing his own priorities. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States have concluded their first day of the third round of talks over possibly amending their bilateral free trade agreement after more than 7 hours of negotiations in Washington on Thursday. Now, South Korea's trade representative in these talks, Myung-hee, who is the Director-General for FTA negotiations, led the talks with her American counterpart, Assistant U.S. Trade Representative Michael Beeman. According to Seoul-based Yonhap news agency, the South Korean representatives argued that the 25% tariff on steel imports scheduled to be imposed later this month is not fair and investor-state dispute settlements need revising. Washington reiterated its stance that Korea needs to work to end the large trade imbalance in industrial goods, including automobiles and auto parts. The two sides will resume their second day of talks on Friday. Now, as South Korea and the US are simultaneously holding a series of talks on various economic agendas, President Trump appears to be threatening to pull American troops out of Korea if he doesn't get his way on trade with Seoul. Lee Seung-jae reports.
The Washington Post has obtained an audio recording of President Trump at a recent fundraiser, where the U.S. leader can be heard saying that the United States is losing money on trade with South Korea. He says, "We lose money on trade, and we lose money on the military. We have right now 32,000 soldiers between North and South Korea. Let's see what happens." His hardline stance on trade comes at a sensitive time as the allies are prepping for planned summits with North Korea over its nuclear program. And the report suggests President Trump may use the U.S. troops issue to pressure South Korea over trade issues. However, in an effort to dispel confusion over Trump's remarks, a White House official stated that the president did not suggest removing American forces from South Korea, but that his administration remains committed to improving the South Korea-U.S. trade relationship for the benefit of American workers. Meanwhile, a day after the recording surfaced, the admiral in charge of U.S. Pacific Command warned such a move would be viewed as a win for North Korea. Admiral Harry Harris, who is set to retire this year and is President Trump's pick to be the next U.S. ambassador to Australia, said Kim Jong-un would do a victory dance if American troops were indeed pulled out. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The world would already be in a trade war if not for the World Trade Organization's leadership. This according to the head of that global body, Director-General Roberto Azevedo, defending the WTO over concerns that free trade is under threat, said President Trump's decision to impose steep tariffs on steel and aluminium imports has made his organization more relevant than ever. He added that related countries should make an effort to talk through their issues to prevent conflicts erupting. Turning now to the government's efforts to counter South Korea's chronic youth unemployment rate, the new measures announced on Thursday include loans and tax benefits. Our Kim Mo-kyun with the details.
Among the set of measures unveiled on March 15 to tackle unemployment, the big announcement was the government decided to draw up a supplementary budget once again this year, which they hope to hand over to the parliament by April. This marks the second time the government has decided to use an extra budget to try to solve the nation's chronic problem of unemployment. But according to President Moon, the supplementary budget will just be a temporary measure to revitalize the labor market, adding that it will be used alongside other measures aimed at solving the fundamental causes of the problem. With the majority of job seekers in Korea hoping to start their careers in large companies, the government seems to have focused on boosting support for small and mid-sized firms. The measures mainly center around three principles: providing practical support to young job seekers, boosting demand for job seekers in the private sector, and providing temporary financial support. The goal of these measures is to bring down the nation's unemployment rate to below 8% within 3 years. The measures include providing up to $8,400 as financial support for every new regular employee hired by small firms for 3 years, and exempting firms from paying income tax for 5 years in an attempt to narrow the wage discrepancy between large and small firms. Employees will also be eligible for low-cost loans for 4 years to help them cover residential fees, and some workers at companies located in industrial complexes will receive a transportation allowance of around $94. The government also seeks to increase support for startup companies by exempting them from paying corporate and income taxes for 5 years, as well as expanding their opportunities to receive various types of funds for both small and large companies. Regarding large firms, the government decided to extend their tax reduction period for every new young person employed and provide a larger benefit for projects aimed at creating jobs. They also announced that the public sector will hire 28,000 employees by the end of this year, which is up 5,000 from its initial plan. Kim Mo-gyan, Arirang News.
Now, Seoul has been ranked the 6th most expensive city in the world to live in. This is according to the Economist Intelligence Unit's latest worldwide cost of living report. The South Korean capital's ranking was unchanged from last year, but it now has the highest average price for a loaf of bread and the highest average price for a bottle of wine among the top 10. Singapore was ranked the world's most expensive city for the 5th straight year, with Tokyo and Osaka dropping out of the top 10 due to Japan's low inflation rate. The weakening dollar meant no American city was among the top 10, despite a rise in the relative cost of living in the US over recent years. 49 days have passed since South Korean tennis star Chung Hyeon had to retire from his Australian Open semi-final against world number 1 Roger Federer. In less than an hour from now, though, the 22-year-old Korean gets another shot at the tennis legend in the quarterfinals of the BNP Paribas Open in California. Jong, who was forced to call it quits against Federer in Melbourne due to a nasty blister on his foot, should be in tip-top shape this time around, having only played 3 matches prior to this clash compared to the 5 he played in Australia. The match will begin at 11 a.m. Korea time. Moving now to our coverage of the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Paralympic Games, and we're going to start with the South Korean mixed wheelchair curling team, who advanced to the semi-finals after 2 dramatic victories on Thursday. After their come-from-behind win against Great Britain in the morning, the 5-member team pulled off another comeback victory against China in the afternoon, winning 7-6. With the victory, the host nation finished top of the round-robin group. They'll play Norway in the semi-final this afternoon. And in the ice sledge hockey competition, South Korea will face off against Italy on Saturday for the bronze medal after the host nation was comfortably beaten by Canada in yesterday's semi-final. Team Korea went down 7-0 to the world's best team, who have not let in a single goal at these Paralympics. Organisers are expecting a sellout crowd for Saturday's game against Italy. The ice hockey events have been a big hit with fans, with over 6,000 tickets sold for South Korea's first match against Japan and over 7,000 for the Canada game. Now, in order to help Paralympians and visitors with disabilities, Gangwon-do Province is offering various facilities and services to make things much more easier for the province's guests. Cha Sang-mi reports from PyeongChang.
There's just a few more days until the end of the PyeongChang 2018 Winter Paralympics. But the venues are still crowded with visitors who are here to watch the games or tour around the Olympic Plaza. And the organizers have made sure those places are accessible for visitors with disabilities. At the PyeongChang 2018 Winter Paralympics, there's a range of facilities and services for athletes and visitors with disabilities. The Sign Language Translation Service is one such service aimed at helping the participants. This phone comes with a small screen that allows the receiver to see the caller. Interpreters at this center provide a remote Korean Sign Language translation service for any athletes or visitors who need it, so that they can ask for directions and find out the game's schedule or transport information. The interpreters are on standby from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day to help interpret communication between the visitors and help desk staff on site. Apart from the remote sign language translation services, more than a dozen interpreters are actually working on site, providing direct services to those in need of a hand.
I currently provide sign language translation services here at PyeongChang Olympic Plaza for those with hearing impairments. I help them with directions to and from Paralympic Games venues.
Transportation is also visitor-friendly. Ordinary Seoul buses have been remodeled to cater to visitors with wheelchairs, providing them with enough space so they can safely travel around the venues.
We have also arranged volunteer services for individual visitors with disabilities so that the volunteers can accompany them from the moment they get off the shuttle bus.
A wide range of facilities for the handicapped have also been expanded around the Paralympic venues. Wheelchair users can use these accessibility ramps to enter buildings like this souvenir shop. Braille blocks and handicapped restrooms have also been added throughout the PyeongChang area to help visitors.
Just in time for the Paralympics, our shopping arcade prepared several facilities for both the general public and for people with disabilities.
With more facilities and services added for the Paralympics, the mountainous counties of Gangwon-do have become a friendly environment for anyone who wants to visit, even after the games. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News, PyeongChang.
Now for a look at stories making headlines around the world, and we're going to start in Syria. Thousands of people in eastern Ghouta have fled the rebel-held area, and this marks the largest exodus since pro-Syrian forces intensified their offensive last month. For more on this and other international news, let's turn, as we always do, to our No Aram. So Aram, what's the latest?
Well, Mark, Thursday saw more than 12,000 Eastern Ghouta residents flee, which is some progress. Images on state media show women and children crossing on foot and in pickup trucks carrying blankets and bags. On the same day, a 25-truck aid convoy also made its way into the enclave. But there is still some way to go, as the International Committee of the Red Cross said that was just a fraction of what was needed. It said nearly 400,000 people are still facing severe shortages in food and medical supplies. Also, pro-government bombardment on Eastern Ghouta is ongoing, so it remains to be seen if evacuations or aid delivery can continue to reach the numbers it did on Thursday. A UN resolution for a 30-day ceasefire has also fallen through, though Syria's ally Russia claims an extension of its daily 5-hour truce enabled Thursday's exodus. Meanwhile, a UN report released Thursday accuses pro-government forces fighting in Syria's 7-year civil war of using rape as a weapon. It states they are targeting residents fleeing the conflict and carrying out other human rights violations, including torture and arbitrary executions. These abuses are said to have started since the 2011 uprising against President Bashar al-Assad. The Trump administration has slapped sanctions on Russian individuals and entities, accusing them of interfering in the 2016 presidential election and carrying out cyber attacks. The U.S. Treasury Department announced Thursday that the sanctions target 19 individuals and 5 entities, marking the strongest action against Moscow since Trump took office. The White House has long been accused of being too soft on the Kremlin and failing to use its congressionally mandated authority to punish Russia. Of the 19 Russians, 13 of them were indicted last month by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, whose Russia investigation the president has repeatedly sought to discredit. Those listed will be subject to an asset freeze in the United States. They will also be banned from accessing the U.S. financial system, though Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin did not say when the measures will be imposed. Moscow says it has already begun drawing up retaliatory measures. Officials in Miami say several people have been killed and cars crushed when a newly installed pedestrian bridge collapsed onto a highway on Thursday. Florida Highway Patrol says at least 5 vehicles are trapped under massive slabs, with search and rescue operations still underway. It added that it does not have an exact death toll. Construction of the 950-ton bridge was finished last Saturday, connecting Florida International University and the city of Sweetwater. It hadn't yet opened to foot traffic.
Good morning. Dress warmly. The weather condition is nothing like we've had the past few days. Both lows and highs have dropped about 5 degrees lower than yesterday here in the capital. And taking a closer look at today's highs, Seoul will only get up to 11 degrees Celsius, while those of you in Busan, it's going to feel like early February, getting up to 9 degrees this afternoon, and skies will get brighter as the day goes on, along with normal air quality. Daily lows will drop even further tomorrow morning, so expect the winter chill here in Seoul, while daily highs will be in the low teens this weekend. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. While most regions in South Korea will have much cooler temperatures today, most of North Korea will also notice cooler readings along with sunny skies. And as for the rest of Asia, gusty winds have put an end to this past week's summer-like weather in Beijing, also the warmest temperatures of the year so far. But for today, sub-zero morning lows will rise to 10 degrees Celsius under sunny skies. Sydney will be under cloudy skies on Friday with mild highs, but on Sunday, expect a sweltering heat with highs in the mid-30s. And heading to North America, in the U.S., warmer than average temperatures are forecast in the spring in the southern and east this spring, while a drought is likely to persist in the southern plains and the southwest. And as for South America, unstable weather conditions are back in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, along with high humidity levels. And taking you to Europe, bad weather conditions delayed dozens of flights at Moscow airports on Thursday. Freezing conditions will continue to grip the Russian capital. And lastly, to Africa, Tripoli will have excessive heat under sunny skies at a high of 34 degrees Celsius, so beware of a heat stroke. And that's all the weather update for now.
Thank you as always to our Ji-hyun for the weather update, and that's pretty much all the news we have for now. Just a reminder that you can catch up on all the latest stories by going to our website, which can be found at arirang.com/news. We also have an official Twitter page. Just search for Arirang News. You'll be able to find us there and give us a follow. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time in around 90 minutes from now. So until then, goodbye.